Hello, friend and colleague. It's Nikki from Full Voice Music. On our show this week, episode 199, my special guest is Dr. Jenevora Williams, and we are talking all about her new book, Teaching Singing to Children and Young Adults, 3rd edition, right here on the Full Voice Podcast. Welcome to the Full Voice Podcast. Yet again, my friend and colleague, Jenevora Williams. How are you?
Oh, Nikki, I'm so pleased to see you. I'm really good and I'm so excited.
Oh, we are excited too. I am so excited. First of all, I want to tell my listeners, this is not the first time you have been on our podcast. You have shared some beautiful information on previous podcasts. We've talked about changing voices and growing voices, adolescent voices on the podcast. You also, we met in 2022 at Chicago, and you recorded a wonderful podcast about happy hormones.
Oh, yes.
And
about what helps us learn in the brain.
yes, and that was one of our top downloaded podcasts, by the way. And of course, you have graced my Zoom room on many occasions to present on changing voices, on vocal growth and change from birth all the way into being a young adult. And those have had teachers from around the world have popped in on those and enjoyed those presentations. So, and of course, we have been working with you. Gosh, I think it's been like 2 years now. 2 years.
Yeah, it's been quite a while.
It has been a long journey, but I'm so excited. Your 3rd edition of Teaching Singing to Children and Young Adults, published by Full Voice Music, is in its final edits and in the final proofreading, and is going to print in just a couple of weeks. So, one, thank you for joining us in all of these adventures. And two, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for your work. Your book has, well, I've told you this a million times. I have your books and they are well loved. They are dog-eared. They have pages with highlighter on them, Post-it notes. It is a reference that I use all the time, and I'm so excited for the third edition. I wanted to ask you, so the 1st edition came out in 2013.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And here we are, 2024 with 3rd edition. What's the biggest change? What's changed so much in our industry from 2013 to 2024?
I think the changes for me have been huge.
Mm-hmm.
I have really shifted the way that I think about teaching, not about the way that voices work, not about how to sing. That hasn't changed that much. There's been a bit of new research. What has really, really changed is the way that we think about our interactions with students and the way that we are now making our lessons so much more student-centered. And thinking about what the student wants, how to get them to come up with the solutions, how to get the student to identify how they want to sound and to help them achieve that in the best way for them. And this makes it, of course, more inclusive.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
It helps everybody, but it takes a bit of learning how to do it, especially if you've been sort of downloading information onto your students for several years.
Mm-hmm.
To turn that around and really think about, okay, it's not about what I know and what I can tell them. It's about how I can help that student find it out for themselves.
I personally struggled with this because, again, my teaching career started 36 years ago. And like many teachers, I brought in all the habits from my experiences in my voice lessons, which were not student centered and was very much master apprentice. And I was a good student. I did what I was told. But like you said, in the last little while, the change from master apprentice to student centered, I found that really challenging. Did you struggle with that transition? Like, did it make you feel feelings?
I still struggle with it, Nikki.
Okay.
I struggle
Okay.
with
It
it
feels so
every
much better
day.
now. That is helpful.
Because my brain is working fast and somebody sings and I think, right, you need to do this, 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 this. And I've got it worked out immediately, what needs
Right.
to change and how to do it. And then I have to stop and breathe
Mm.
and say, what did you notice? And just start from there, knowing in my intellectual reasoning brain, but also in my heart of hearts, that if I take it slower, we'll get there faster.
Oh, that's such a hard. I know that in my heart, but I agree. In my brain, I'm just like, and when you're teaching, you have such a little moment of time with them, and you want it to be as productive as possible, and you want to just fix, 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 fix. But you're right. You have to step back. For teachers like you and I, who are embracing this student-centered, student-led type of teaching and are worried about productivity, are worried about not seeing the results, what kind words of enthusiasm and inspiration can you give them?
Knowing that you do get there faster by going more slowly, knowing that one new idea and one new experience from each lesson is enough.
Oh, that's so good.
So the student has one thing to work on, to shift, to get used to play with, to explore. And there's no value in sending people out with, overfed brains,
Sure.
because they'll lose it, they'll forget it.
Mm-hmm.
The only people who can cope with that are the really high-level professionals who fly in for a quick lesson just to top up, and they've got a whole series of performances and things lined up, and they just want that high energy input for an hour. You could do that.
Right.
But with kids, with people who are making shifts, making changes to what they do and how they do it, it is more efficient to go more slowly.
Right.
So just one new thing per lesson, and always talk to the student, always have that conversation, that communication going. So if you feel under pressure from their parents because they want them to take exams and they want them to get scholarships and they want them to tick the boxes and achieve the things, then work it out with the student how you're going to do that together, why they're going to do that. They may be feeling as frustrated as you are at having to please other people and satisfy someone else's agenda. So have an honest conversation with them and with the parents about why those things are useful, how to put them in perspective, how to incorporate those steps in a more holistic journey of learning to be a singer.
Oh, that is so helpful. You have been hosting some workshops for teachers who are learning about working with children, and I was wondering what kind of what's the burning questions that they come to you with? Maybe they've been working with teens or, students that have already gone through puberty, but now they're interested in working with younger students. What questions do they usually have for you?
Well, the one that is coming up all the time is working especially with upper range singers who are, so young singers, often teenage girls who are reluctant to use the upper part of their voice, don't like it, it's breathy, it's not really feeling like their identity.
Oh, so good.
They can't hear themselves sounding like the singers they want to sound like when they use that part of their voice.
Right.
So it's how to help them sort of discover the sounds that are there but have just not come out yet.
Right.
That's one of the big questions.
Right.
Another big question is what to do with the kids that seem reluctant to make a noise.
Oh, good
The ones
question.
who are scared of it and really timid. And parents say, no, they love their lessons, they love coming, they really want to come. And then they hide in the corner of a room and don't make any sound or make the tiniest sound.
Right.
And they look bored and not interested.
Oh.
And what to do with those students?
Now,
How to...
I was going to say, let's go back to the young singers that are discovering the colors of their voice. What are some of the strategies that you offer or you recommend for helping our students just the term I use is make peace with their voice. That's what I say, like so that they appreciate it and understand it. So what are some of your strategies when you're working with teachers or with students that are dealing with that?
Exploring potential and variety. So the first thing I would do is silly games, imitating other sounds. So because that takes them out of their self-conscious judgment. I've got to sound perfect. I've got to sound wonderful. I've got to sound like this person. So take them out of that and play with sounds that are messy, sounds that might be ugly, sounds that are playful and silly. And so it might be different animals, it might be different emotions, it might be imagining different flavors of food. It could be anything that they're into.
I love that.
But just messing about and permission to just be a bit silly and explore. So that is about creating an environment in your teaching studio which is not judgmental, which is open and honest. We talk about creating a safe space, which is, I think, a thing that's perhaps overused or misapplied sometimes, because you can't say it's okay that this is a safe space, because if somebody doesn't feel safe, it's not.
Right. Sure.
You might be able to make it a safer place. So that you would do if they explore a little bit and try out new sounds, that what they then get back, or the feedback, is positive, it's accepting, it's taking them maybe to the next stage, it's taking what they give you and exploring further options. So there's always a reason for it. Nothing is ever dismissed or that they're never told that it's not the way to do it, or that they'll hurt themselves, or any of those sort of negative comments.
Oh, that's so helpful.
Play.
Oh, I love it. I know that in my experience, I've had even experienced singers come to the studio who have never been given that permission and have never had that type of encouragement to use their voice in such a way. And it can be very challenging. It could really be very stressful for them because they're used to that different type of approach where it is right or wrong, or we're looking for a very specific sound outcome. And it can be challenging to work with singers of any age for that matter, just helping them discover. And I remember just teasing one of my students, and I'm like, this is like a fun game that I play with my little ones. Do you want to try it? And just joking around. And it was just like the vocal roller coasters on a whiteboard. And sure enough, some of these beautiful, joyous, clear as a bell notes came out far higher than she could if we were sitting at the piano. And I remember tears coming. She's like, I had no idea. I had no idea. No one ever told me that I could just make a funny sound with my voice. And there's my voice. And it was so beautiful. Like, that was just a beautiful moment. After weeks of really trying to make her feel comfortable in my studio. Like, it did take some time.
Yeah, it can. And this, as you say, for any age, so many people have somewhere along the line had a negative experience associated with singing or being heard.
Sure.
And there's sometimes healing to do there.
Absolutely.
A bit of healing, a bit of repatterning those responses so that they can feel a different feeling.
Oh, I love it. Now, going back to your book.
The book. Hey.
Yes, I know. We're so excited. Just for my listeners, so Jenevora and I talked for like a half hour before we started recording just about all the exciting things happening with this book. So I want to let everybody know, because I'm sure some of my listeners may have either the first edition or the second edition. There's so many new things in the third edition. And one of the beautiful things that was part of this book was that you collaborated with many incredible voice experts and different types of voice experts. And there's so much new information with a broader scope. First of all, what made you want to kind of get more voices in with your latest edition? And let's start with that. What kind of motivated you, inspired you to send out a bunch of emails and pick up the phone?
Yeah, thinking about what to include and what I would change. So what I would add, what I would change, what I might leave out. I don't think I've left anything out, actually. I mean, we seem to have added.
I agree.
Thinking about what I would add. And then, of course, my mind was going to, I can ask them about that. And I can ask that person. I could ask their advice. And then I thought, what's the point of me spending all this time translating their words into mine when I could just ask them to write some stuff?
Beautiful.
And so the collaborations have varied loads with, I think I've got 8 collaborators in the book. And the variety is, some of them I've just sent them some work and said, do you think you could just check over it and make sure I'm not being an idiot here? And
that's what friends are
and
for.
It's come back with just a little bit of, you could change this and you could say that. And
nice.
Yeah. So idiot proofing. Then there's been some editing. Can you just read this and let me know your thoughts on it? Some people, it's been, can you write a whole section for me?
Yeah.
And then the fun has been integrating their sections and my sections and making it flow as if it's one voice when it's two. And sometimes those two brains are thinking a bit chaotically. And when you've got two muddled pathways and trying to make one sensible pathway from it, there's a challenge for everybody. That is where the editorial team have come in.
So
Aha.
shout out to Laura Van Elpen. Laura is our editor on this project, and she has been absolutely phenomenal. She read through the whole the manuscript, and then she did a great job or she did a good reorganization, I would say, of the information.
She did a total reorganization. You don't need this. You need to put it here. So nothing was left out, but it was just all organized in a different pathway.
Yeah.
And this is another thing about how things are different now from 12 years ago. Because when I was putting the first edition together, I wanted to make it clear that people didn't have to follow every chapter one after the other and do a linear read through book. Because what happens then is people read the first 3 chapters and then they put it to one side and they never get to the end or the middle. And then they miss out some of the bits that may be the most useful for them. So I structured it so that you can jump in and out. Whereas now I think people jump in and out automatically.
It's true.
People don't tend, they may open page 1 and have a look and read the first couple of pages, and then they'll flick forwards and they'll just have a look. Well, what's a bit further on? And, there's a bit on this. Actually, I want to read the chapter about the way brains learn. I want to read the chapter about vocal health. Actually, I want to know about musicianship. So they will jump in of their own accord. So I didn't have to separate it. Now it can be more joined up.
Yes. Oh, I agree. Like, I think, one, I would encourage people to read it from page 1, because there's just every chapter has so much wonderful information. And especially if you are, if you're new to working with younger singers, or if you are transitioning into more student-centered learning, I think throughout the book that is covered in so many different ways, and I think it's very helpful. When you were working with, actually, let me ask you this. What's one of the newer chapters, newer content that was in the 3rd edition that you're really excited about?
Oh, that's like asking somebody who's their favorite child.
I won't tell the other children.
I have that joke with my children. I call each of them my favorite child. Whenever I'm talking to them.
I only have one, and I refer to him as my favorite child, and he always reminds me that he is the only child. And I said, well, if I ever say that you're not my favorite child, you're in trouble.
There's trouble.
Right?
Yeah. So my some standouts. Well, probably the most significant standout are the 3 musicianship chapters.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I didn't write a word of them.
Yes.
They are totally written by Alex Aitken, and he is phenomenal. He's got the most imaginative and creative way of thinking about what musicianship is and how we can walk that path with the student and help them discover how music is put together and how it works and what it is. And it really, that needed somebody with that expertise to take care of that.
I'm very excited for people to dive into Alex's, we call them interludes, musicianship interludes in the book. And I think that, for us here at Full Voice Music, that's always been one of our goals, is to help teachers to provide comprehensive lessons, and comprehensive singing lessons are far more than just singing. And when you had sent me Alex's contribution, I was blown away. I was so excited, because they really are. It's a much more holistic and immersive way of incorporating musicianship, and those interludes would be applicable to any any music teacher, not just a singing teacher. It's really they're beautiful sections. And he's done it with beginner level, intermediate level, and advanced level. It's so good. I'm excited for people to dive into that.
It is so good. And he doesn't talk about notation, and he doesn't talk about
Nope.
theory, and he doesn't use written music notation at all. It's all felt. It's all in the body, and it's all in the imagination. And that is the way that humans experience music.
Oh,
And so this is the
so
way
good.
in. And then once you've got those ideas and you know the patterns and you can recognize those sounds and how they work together, it's easy then to pick up a bit of printed music and make sense of it.
I
So
love
much
it.
easier.
I love it. I'm so excited for that. Okay, I have a question for you. What was the hardest chapter? There's 10 chapters in here. What was the hardest chapter for you to either revisit or write for the third edition?
The hard ones are the ones where I felt very personally invested in them, and my own voice was being challenged.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I had to face up to some truths and some of my bias and some of my traditional ways of thinking, and just shift. So one of the chapters I'm thinking about is the chapter on adolescent voice change. And Liz Jackson Hands came along and really held me to account and said, how would that feel, that chapter there, that paragraph, if you were reading that and you were a boy having menstrual cycles? How would that feel? So I had to then just rejig the language. I didn't say anything different. I just said it in a different way that allowed that open door so that people reading it, I didn't make it, I don't think it was clumsy. I think it was just having things a little bit more open. So talking about teens instead of boys. And, it still makes sense.
Absolutely.
It's
true.
still, each part of it still makes complete sense, but it is just gentler and more available. So hopefully people reading that won't feel left out or offended or feel, well, that doesn't apply to me.
Nice.
So there's those questions. And I think the same goes for genre, so that the way that we're talking about the sounds that people make can work for any genre and can be inclusive of different styles of singing and different styles of music. So yeah, I came from a pretty traditional musical education, and I'm now a bit older, so I've been doing it for longer.
Sure.
And now it's just, that has been the hard thing, is challenging myself. And just rethinking it and realizing that some of the stuff I was really proud of needed to be rethought and reworked.
I appreciate your candor and your honesty there, and I think that I think we just, as teaching, if you've been teaching for even a decade, if you're not questioning some of your methods, your language, your approaches, like, are you paying attention? Like, are you staying current? We have to allow ourselves to be challenged in order to grow. That is so hard when you they're the teacher. I think that's so challenging. So
I'll give you another example. Through the book, I had a lot of guidance for things like correct posture. All right. So you need to be aligned in a particular way in order for the sound to be most efficient.
Sure.
Which has truth in it. But the way that you talk about it can either be inclusive or it can be alienating. Or it can be problematic. So correct posture as a term, what does that mean?
Who gets to decide what correct posture is, right?
Yeah. And you can stand with your body aligned in the most ideal way visually, and it'll be absolutely stiff as a board and completely ineffective. So that, again, is just going through and picking out every time I use those terms to think, what do I actually mean here? Because we get lazy. People talk about posture, they talk about support, they talk about various technical terms for singing when they don't really have a meaning. So what do we actually mean? What we mean is find a position that makes it comfortable for you to do what you want to do.
Nice.
And for some people, that might be sitting. For some, it might be standing. For some, it might be allowing their body to be slightly wonky because that's the way they're built. For some, it might be keeping on the move because they find it really difficult to stand still. There are so many different ways of making that kind of information applicable to every individual.
Oh, so good. I love how our industry is being more mindful in the language, in what serves our students, and again, going back to as best as possible creating safer spaces and more inclusive spaces. I think it's beautiful work. But it does, if your feathers aren't getting ruffled here and there, you're probably missing some information. I wanted to ask you about one of the things that you are often speaking on, and you have been traveling all over. This past year, you were in Australia. You were in Norway. I think you were in Norway.
Yeah. Been about Spain.
Oh my goodness.
Where else? Scotland.
Wow.
Yeah.
One of the topics that you are often speaking about is vocal health, specifically vocal health for children. And actually, you're going to a convention coming up, or a symposium where you're speaking on that. That's something that comes up a lot in our industry because of the history of the comment of, you can't work with children because you will hurt their voices. So that I believe is there's a residue left behind from that language. So when you're talking about vocal health for children, what are some of the key takeaways for teachers that might be new to working with kids?
This is very interesting, actually. I was interviewed recently for a music teacher magazine in the UK. And one of the questions was, is it true that, certain genres are going to be harmful for children's voices? That if they sing musical theatre or if they sing pop, then they're going to hurt their voices.
Oh.
And I said, goodness, no. No, it doesn't make any difference what the genre is. It's how they're doing it. And most importantly, it's how happy they are while they're doing it.
Wow. Can you expand on that?
I think the most significant problem for children's vocal health, and I have been working in vocal health for children for years and years. I started my PhD research in this in 2002. So that's, more than 20 years ago. And I was already quite interested in it then, doing a lot of work with children. So I've had 30 or more years of this. and identifying what it is that causes the problems. Right? How can we prevent things from occurring in the first place? We have to identify what might be causing the problems, what's contributing to them. And there are the old ones of is overuse. The more you use your voice, then it's going to get more tired. Yeah. And misuse, so maybe loads of screaming and shouting, that might cause problems.
Sure.
There are those, and obviously other related health issues. But the more I've looked at it, and the more I've worked with children, the more I think the common factor in all of this, and this isn't my research, this has been around for a long time. The common factor is levels of anxiety.
Wow.
Because when we are anxious, we are not using our bodies as effectively as we are if we're feeling relaxed and happy and chilled. So the kids who go out in the playground and scream and shout and yell and charge about and are happy in themselves while they're doing that are less likely to hurt their voices than the kids who might not be as noisy but are really angry or frustrated or feeling like no one's listening to them or feeling out of place, feeling like they are not being valued. The children who are criticized too much, the children who are expected to do things that they can't do because they're neurodiverse or because they, for whatever reason. So whatever the reason is for those levels of anxiety, those are the things to address, to notice, recognize, make a little private note. You don't necessarily want to draw them out into public view immediately.
Yes, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And work from there. That, I think, is the key issue with children's vocal health.
That is so helpful because, again, as we circle back to creating more inclusive spaces, doing our best to create safer spaces, those children who are dealing with anxiety, those children who are working with more constraints like that, will have a better chance of discovering their voice, will have more opportunities. Like it again, moving slowly gets us there faster.
Yeah. And there are different types of anxiety. I talk about this actually in the chapter I wrote with Amelia Carr about performance anxiety. Very generally, there's state anxiety and trait anxiety. So state anxiety will be certain triggers. So maybe you get really anxious when you're performing, or very anxious for auditions, or anxious when you are going to school.
Yeah.
Whereas trait anxiety is more of a general disposition to being a bit of a worrier about things. And it is one of the questions that I always ask everybody, actually.
Yeah.
Are you a worrier? Do you worry about things? Are there things that prey on your mind a bit? And then people can say, oh, yes, I'm a worrier. I worry about all sorts of things. And then other people say, well, not really, but I do worry about. So again, it's identifying those things, whether they are just specific situations in which kids are getting wound up or upset. And those situations might be, as I say, auditions or performances, or they might be periods of their life. They might be, at the moment because mum and dad are shouting at each other a lot.
Sure.
Or it
Of course.
might be at the moment because I'm about to leave my school, which I love, and go to a big new school, and I'm a bit scared about it. There are things that happen in kids' lives that need to be taken care of.
Yeah.
I
wanted to just share with the listeners, one of the things that you are constantly reminding people when you've done the workshops for us at Full Voice, and the online course that takes people through the voice and growth and change, and the reminder that you give teachers, and I think it's so important because it's so easy to forget, is just how much kids are going through that we forget. And it's, there's just so much that little people are dealing with. Teenagers, that's a very challenging time. And it's important for the voice teacher to recognize that maybe our lesson plan today needs to be something more fun, or maybe I won't worry about if they're practicing as much as I need them to while they get through this, bump in their life. And that's something that you beautifully always kindly remind teachers of in your presentations, and I'm always grateful for that.
I think we think kids are incredibly resilient and adaptable, and they just keep going, and they do. They're amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But the kids who are coping and maybe bottling things up and just getting on with it, where is that frustration, that upset, that anger, that feeling not listened to? Where is that going?
Sure.
It's going somewhere into their body.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so important. I know I'm this is way in the future, but I have to tell all my listeners so that they can mark it in their calendars. But you are coming to Toronto. So for all my Canadian teachers, the International Convention, is it ICVT? Yes. Yes, ICVT 25 is in Toronto this year. It's in partnership with the Royal Conservatory as well as the University of Toronto. You have been selected as one of the presenters, and we will be there. Full Voice will be there as well. What is your? Can you tell us? Are you allowed to tell us what your presentation will be in 2025 at that convention?
Well, no surprises, really. It's going to be on vocal health in children.
Oh, fabulous. Okay.
So I'm going to be talking about how to look after children's vocal health, how to recognize when there might be things going on, what might be causing it, how to mitigate this, what exercises to give, when you really need to work collaboratively in a team. So you're working with a speech therapist, maybe, and you're working alongside, a doctor who's been examining that child, looking at the voice. You do need the teamwork for those sort of things. So that's what I'm going to be talking about.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. And then I think after the convention, I'm forcing you to come visit us in Nova Scotia. So
I am so excited. I can't wait.
We have plans for you.
Oh, yes.
Jenevora, I are collaborating over the last couple of years. From the moment I met you in Chicago, and from that moment, we have just partnered on so many wonderful things. And I can't thank you enough for your expertise, your research, your work in the field, and the way that you hold space for teachers who, whether they've been teaching for a long time or they're just new to teaching, it's just truly beautiful. First of all, before I say goodbye, where can people find and follow you?
Do you know, I'm really easy to find because no one else has my name.
It's true.
So if you just look up Jenevora Williams, you'll get to me straight away. So my website, JenevoraWilliams.com, and on Instagram, Facebook, all of those social media, you just look up my name and you'll find me.
Beautiful.
So come and follow.
Awesome.
I have one thing that I want to say, Nikki.
Oh, am I in trouble?
No, yeah. Well, it kind of relates to the book because we were talking about the collaborative aspect of the book and how important it is to recognize that we're not an island. We're not no one person has all the answers.
It's true.
And this is the really, really lovely thing about the third edition is that it is other voices, it's multiple voices. So you're getting expertise from
So true.
so many different people. So it's valuing collaboration, valuing the team at the publishers. So you mentioned Laura, yeah, and you and Mim.
Yep.
Mim Adams. The team, we couldn't do it. No one on their own can do it. You need the team. And when you're teaching, you need a team around you. You need to collaborate obviously with the student. You need to collaborate with their carers. You need to collaborate with their friends. You must collaborate with the other teachers who are working in the same space, in the same town. Just get together with other people. Buddy up with people. I'm always saying to teachers who I work with, yes, of course you can come to me for mentoring, but you can also find another teacher who you get on with, who you trust, and buddy up with them. Meet up once a month online. Just talk through some case studies. Collaboration and helping each other and recognizing what your own superpowers are, recognizing what you're brilliant at.
Yes.
And then knowing where you can utilize other people's superpowers.
I love that. I think I want to shout out to Michelle Marquardt DeVoe of the Speakeasy. And I want to shout out to the teachers who are in the Speakeasy, because that is exactly what that organization is about. And the people that I've met, you're a member of the Speakeasy. Like, it's just a wonderful way to collaborate. And I've talked to Michelle about this, but when I first started teaching, I thought I needed to have all the answers. I thought I needed to be the expert in the room, and I had all of this pressure in my studio, starting a business, and it was back then it was such a lonely. I was the only voice teacher at the first school that I was teaching at. I had no one to talk to, and how that just made me so small and insecure and not willing to open up to new ideas. And I think that that's changing so much. And I want to encourage teachers, just like what you said, it's just so important to talk to your friends, and you do not have to be the expert in all things. You can't be the expert in all things, and there's just nothing wrong with that. And I love the collaboration in this book, and I love the way that a rising tide raises all ships kind of attitude in our studios.
Yep. I think that is absolutely vital, really, for us all.
I love it. So to my listeners or viewers, if you're watching this on YouTube, Genevora's book, 3rd edition, Teaching Singing to Children and Young Adults, will be going to press at the beginning of November 2024. You will be able to purchase it from our website, fullvoicemusic.com. We will be shipping to all of Canada and the US, as well as the UK. And then in January 2025, it will be available worldwide. So, Jenevora, I'm so excited. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for partnering with us. And thank you for this wonderful resource that is going to change lives.
Oh, thank you, Nikki. I'm so excited. I'm really, really excited.
We're excited too. And I have to tell you, I keep getting emails and messages through social media because people are like, when is that book coming out? When is Genevora's book coming out? When can I pre-order it? There's a lot of people waiting for this, and we're so excited. I'm going to put links in the show notes for people to find. You can preview the book and pre-order the book soon. And of course, I'm going to put all of Genevora's information in there, as well as links to find her, see where she's going to be presenting and speaking worldwide, as well as her amazing website. So thank you so much, Jenevora.
And thank you, everybody, for listening to this.